Episode 1 opens on Ben and Till. They're riding towards the debris field on Volt sleds. They approach, and Till makes some comments about it actually being weird to be outside without walls or a ceiling. While they're looking over the debris field, they come across a piece that has "Don't Run" spray painted on it. Just then, they see in the distance men appear wearing tactical military cold suits, and they even have guns. They also have individual things painted on their helmets, and this is going to come in handy this season to help identify some of these characters. So there is an anchor, a spade, a buffalo, a mouse, and I also think there's a fox. Ben and Till run, and then we get a cutaway to 9 months later. Leighton is running through a series of cars, and he seems to be more and more panicked as he runs. But when he arrives at his destination, we learn that he was just running to bring Liana, the baby, her favorite toy called Gibby. We see Josie, Zara, Leighton, and Liana enjoying a nice life together. The town of New Eden is busy and bustling. They have your normal problems like food production, power production, and communications. Leighton wraps up with, on Snowpiercer, 879 cars long. We get a nice zoom out here. We can see New Eden from up above and how they've arranged some of the cars, and we can even see that they've rebuilt the bridge. We follow Javi, Josie, Leighton, and Zara through the town of New Eden. Zara is happy that they've finally grown some strawberries, and Javi goes on about how we can improve communications. A couple times this episode, we're getting shots from, like, we'll have a scene happening outside in front of some cars, and then we'll get a shot, like, from 50 feet away of somebody, like, sneakily watching them. So we get one of those now. Javi convinces Josie to help him with the communications problem. She's impervious to the cold, so she can go out and check if the relays are doing all right. Ruth and Leighton have a conversation in a dining hall. We find out that this is in the town hall building. It seems to be their big communal center. They talk about being in charge and how it's a council that runs the city. Ruth congratulates Leighton on the bridge being finished. Leighton heads to the job site as they actually have a few days left to finish the job. When Leighton arrives at the job site, he breaks up a fight between Bulky, the large cold man, and Osweiler, the brakeman turned janitor turned night car entrepreneur. He's drunk on the job site. It leads to a fight, and his hand ends up cut. So Oz goes to get stitches from Zara at the clinic. Zara tries to be positive, as they may be reunited with Snowpiercer soon, and Osweiler hates all the people on Snowpiercer. He still thinks his ex-wife is alive. So, in the next scene, the council members meet. Everybody except for Alex. I think we have Roche, Javi, Leighton, Ruth, and maybe Sykes is there. So they all start playing poker and drinking and having a good time. And we get a few of these scenes. Alex enters Big Alice. We see her greeting her bird called Mr. Sprinkles and analyzing some data. She gets a nosebleed, and we are taken back to the poker game. During the game, Javi tells everybody their tells, and as they're having a great time, the power goes out. Javi goes to investigate this, and we see that a cord has been unplugged. After Javi restores power to the town, he begins to hear voices in the distance. We get a panning shot across the frozen wastelands, and we see a small track scaler coming across the tracks towards New Eden. Leighton and Josie fool around, and they also speculate on who might have put the power out. The next day, Javi works on the radio. He hears some voices coming through, but can't seem to make contact. Zara and Leighton get a chance to share Liana's first steps. Oz drinks from a still that he's made in his tent, and we get a chance to see that he's living apart from the rest of the town on a mountainside. While he's outside, he begins to hear voices. Javi gets a chance to meet Alex and Big Alice, and they get to talk about their data. She shrugs him off, saying that she's really busy. Alex shuts Javi down, saying she doesn't want to get personal, and she just wants to stick to the science. We get a little scene where Ruth and Leighton plan for Snowpiercer's return. Josie discovers that the relays have been shot down. The group suspects Boki, as he's been off doing things with Alex lately. But Leighton clears him, saying that he saw him leaving town carrying Alex's bird in a box. Dr. Hedwood leaves the clinic to give Boki a treatment. We can see that she still has her husband's shoes in a little glass box. She's held on to them since he died. Zara is left alone in the clinic with Liana. Ruth and Leighton reflect on leadership. They discuss who might be behind the attacks, and they believe that it's somebody who doesn't want to reconnect with Snowpiercer. Roche comes to the clinic and offers to watch Liana as Zara goes up to Oz's mountainside tent to give him stitches again. Leighton talks to Alex, and she is really into the science this episode, so much that it goes over Leighton's head, and he just wants to know where Boki is. He also wants to know when he'll be back. She says they're having small earthquakes and atmospheric erosion, and she's trying to get to the bottom of it. Boki lets Mr. Sprinkles go, out in the wasteland. He's still in the bubble, but he's further away from camp. And when he lets the bird go, we cut to Josie. She sees the bird flying through the air, so they must be close. And as her eyes are taken in the direction the bird goes, she sees something in the distance, and we hear an engine sound. Leighton is walking along the track, and the track scaler shows up. He rushes to the door, and we find Audrey inside. She's badly scarred and very weak. She only has the strength to say they're coming. Zara climbs the mountain to help Oz. They have a nice little heart-to-heart in his tent, and Oz thinks that all the people on Snowpiercer are dead, and the voices he's hearing are their ghosts. At Town Hall, Ruth congratulates everybody on finishing the bridge. Just as she's handing out these congratulations, the power is cut. Leighton brings Audrey into Town Hall, and he warns them that they've been worried about who could be coming when they're already here. He puts Audrey down and runs off to find Zara and Liana. Roche is watching Liana when Dr. Hedwood shows up. She is joined by one of the soldiers from the ambush from the beginning of the episode, and he knocks Roche out, and Dr. Hedwood takes Liana. Josie meets up with Leighton, and he tells her about Audrey, and she says that it wasn't the track scaler that she saw, it was a snowcat, like a big tractor. They rush to the clinic to find Zara, and find Roche unconscious, but he'll be okay. They also find Gibby from the beginning of the episode on the floor. Zara's coming back from helping Oz, and she hears Liana crying in the distance. She goes towards the crying, and she finds Dr. Hedwood with the soldier carrying the baby. She attempts to take the baby back from the soldier, but is overpowered. They're having a little bit of a shoving match on the edge of the cliff, and we cut away to Leighton rallying the town and arming everybody. Josie is walking through the mountains, attempting to find Zara, and is met by Boki. He says that she needs to follow him immediately, and he takes her to Zara. It looks like Zara was pushed off the cliff while she was in the shoving match with the soldier, and she's broken her back. She lays there gasping for breath and tells Josie to go after Liana. They've taken Liana, and they need to keep her safe. She draws her last breath, and then Zara dies. Josie and Boki carry Liana's body back to town. They're met by Leighton. Leighton is traumatized, upset, and then he realizes Liana's gone. They have a tale-style funeral for Zara, where everybody mourns her. Leighton plans to kill the attackers. We get the conclusion of the ambush at the end of this episode. Ben and Till were taken hostage by the group of soldiers. When they board Snowpiercer, we learn their leader is named Anton Melius, and he is part of an international peacekeeping force. They demand to be taken to Melanie Cavill, and the episode ends. Episode 2, The Sting of Survival, opens with Audrey's narration. She tried to warn them that people were coming to attack New Eden. The only words she can mutter to Leighton are, "They took the train. They took the train." 9 months ago, Ben and Mel walk the train. Audrey meets with Till in the night car. Ben and Mel camp out in the car with the sky bubble on it. They talk about the strength of radio transceivers or transmitters and come up with ideas on how come they can't contact New Eden. We get taken back to the ambush now. Ben and Till are being marched up train. Till attempts to fight off her captor and make contact with Melanie via the hard line, and is shot in the shoulder for her troubles. These soldiers mean business. Audrey narrates, "The piece ended on Snowpiercer, 879 cars long. Audrey is barely able to patch Till up when Till tells her to go and warn Melanie. Audrey makes her way to the hospitality radio booth room and looks for the emergency lockdown button. As they're marching through the train, Anton demands that first class be evacuated. Just as Anton and his soldiers make their way past first class towards the engine, Melanie locks down the helm. Anton arrives at the vault door and threatens to shoot Ben if Melanie doesn't let him in. Melanie gives in, and Anton takes control of Snowpiercer. Anton and his soldiers plug in their own computers, and they even have their own engineer. Ben and Melanie are taken to the same hospitality radio room that Audrey was in earlier. They speculate on the origins of the soldiers. In the hallway, we see a soldier struggling to breathe, and then he changes a cylinder attached to his breathing apparatus. The soldiers force the new head of hospitality to make an announcement. First and second class are to evacuate to third class. This is only temporary, and if all of the soldiers' orders are followed, all is well. Pelton helps Till. She uses a bottle of bourbon, cowboy style, to disinfect the wound, and then she uses the alcohol mixed with soil from a potted plant to pack the wound. Anton is at the helm, reflecting on how much he enjoys being above ground. He orders his soldier to engage the track switch so that the train can ride over the tracks that they've built. Mel and Ben feel this right away, and they realize they're not on Wilford track anymore. They build a contraption to escape, and while this they theorize and assume that they're headed towards Djibouti, as it was a trade hub and a military hub before the freeze. Their contraption works, and they're able to take the soldier in the hallway down. Mel even manages to get a handgun from him. As they're leaving, we can see some black gas escaping from his mask. Ben and Mel manage to make it to the subtrain. Audrey enters the library car, and Anton presses her for information about Melanie, and he also makes comparisons about the lavish lifestyle they live on Snowpiercer compared to how his men and him are forced to live underground. Ben and Melanie reach one of Ruth's little hideouts from her war with Wilford. In the wall of the hideout is a brake line. Ben and Melanie activate it so they can slow down their approach to Djibouti. Audrey is taken to the market car. The soldier that takes her breaches the car with a gunshot to the ceiling. Anton makes an announcement over the loudspeaker saying that the train car will freeze within 20 minutes unless Melanie surrenders. Ben and Melanie work on a plan to freeze the engine car, just the inside, like where the people are, as there's a sensor that should override the main door, giving them access and control again. Till and Audrey are able to seal the hole in the night car, buying themselves a little more time. Mel puts on a cold suit and attempts to sneak into the intakes of the engine from the outside of the train. Her and Ben work in tandem, and they accomplish this goal. All the people in the breached car are huddled together as they're starting to freeze. As Mel and Ben's plan starts to come together, the train enters an underground base. Mel enters the engine car and seems to take control of Snowpiercer again. Anton arrives, and they have a standoff. Mel is still armed. Just then, a scientist named Nima arrives. Nima and Melanie know each other from before the freeze. Nima is working with Anton, and Melanie stands down. Nima and his team have been working at the underground base since the freeze. He and his team have been working on a compound they've been sending into the atmosphere that has created certain hotspots. Mel is excited at this because she and us find out that it is Nima's team who is responsible for New Eden. He shows her a satellite image of New Eden, giving Melanie the proof of life she's wanted this whole episode. Melanie is so happy she agrees to help. Mel and Ben talk about the new plan. Melanie's going to stay here in Djibouti and work with Nima on the science, and Ben is going to helm the retrofit of Snowpiercer. They have a little bit of hope that this plan might save the world. We have a 9-month time jump again to get us back to current day. Snowpiercer has been turned into a work camp. We see Audrey packing things into a track scaler. The plan is for Till to escape and warn New Eden of an incoming attack. They're surprised by a soldier and there's a commotion. In the fight, Till distracts the soldier and Audrey ends up being the one who has to leave in the track scaler. Audrey takes a face full of the black smoke we saw earlier, and that is what scarred her face up. She wraps up telling Layton that story, and we see Layton starting to put the pieces together in his head. And that's the end of this episode. Episode 3 from Season 4 of Snowpiercer. It's called Life Source. Ruth opens this episode with a story about shoplifting. As she's walking through the village of New Eden, townspeople are passing her. They're asking lots of questions about the attack from the night before. All this comes together with Layton attempting to take the train, and Ruth stopping him, reminding him that there are no more unilateral decisions, and that they fought for this type of democracy, and Layton's making a laughing joke of it. Our intro ends with Ruth saying 471 souls strong, instead of our traditional intro with the amount of cars, like if it's Big Alice or Snowpiercer. Back on Snowpiercer, Till gets out of a form of prison that they've made on the new Snowpiercer, which is, they call it the hot box. It's like a sauna, which I think is pretty funny because Snowpiercer is all about like freezing people's arms off and, oh, if the train doesn't move, we're all going to freeze to death. And now as a form of punishment, they make them sweat it out. When she gets out, we get to see that Snowpiercer's been turned into some type of work camp. You see them making big metal parts in some type of assembly line in what looks like the chains or the market section. Till talks about how much of a liar Melius is and that they think he has ulterior motives. In New Eden, the council's in session. Layton is trying to take the train by any means necessary. The engineers attempt to talk him out of it based on power production. Like, they need Big Alice to make enough power to sustain the city long term. Layton won't listen to reason. Ben is summoned to the second-class clinic, where Melius is there with a soldier that has recently died. We see on his arm some of the burning or like melting that has been caused by that black chemical. It's what made Audrey's face all messed up and burnt a little spot on Till's arm. Melius needs Ben to rewire a panel in AgSeg to test a new fertilizer that Nima's come on board with. Melius offers 12-hour shifts. Ben counters with 10-hour shifts. They agree on this. He'll do the work. When he leaves, Nima confronts Melius about how dangerous the chemicals can be they're testing. We get a short scene of Oz in a drunken stupor hearing things. Ben and Till attempt to confront Nima about the chemicals and what's going on with Melius. They're headed off at the pass by Melius as they try to go into the library car. Till stays outside with Melius and Ben goes inside to get the information from Nima. Till and Melius have this short conversation about like spirit. Melius likes Till because of her defiant nature. When Ben goes in to talk to Nima, they have some shorthand about the chemicals and what's been going on. Nima says, "You might not trust me, trust Mel." Ben attempts to press Nima about Melius, and he only gets one crack in his armor, and Nima says he wasn't always the admiral. And then another soldier comes in the room, so he quickly changes to praising Melius. Oz attempts to confront Layton about seeing a bird as a symbol of hope. Layton shrugs him off and basically shoves him to the ground because he's mad about Zara going up to see Oz in the mountains, and that's why she was where she was when she got killed. Ruth and Javi have a chat with Alex and Big Alice about if it's possible for Layton to take the train. Nima confronts Melius about the time frame for their ongoing project. Melius shows his callous nature while he's talking with Nima about the art. He says that they only have value if they needed to burn them to keep them warm. He says this quote, "When the world's starving, don't leave a lobster in the tank." I've never heard that. He exerts his dominance over Nima and basically makes him submit in front of everybody. This is going to be ongoing. This guy's a piece of work. Layton employs Javi in his attempt to steal the train. They decide to work together. Josie and Alex end up in the mountain section, end up having a heart-to-heart. They both end up crying. It's a short emotional scene. Leighton and Javi get caught by Sykes and Aggshead trying to reroute the power. Leighton makes up some excuse, and they get out of there. Till and Ben investigate the car and Eggsegg they've been sent to work on. The panel's ripped right out of the wall, and the car looks really damaged and the plants are all dying. It's actually the last car on the train where they split. You've seen it in the last episode of the last season. Oz and Roach have a chat in the bar back in New Eden about the hard times they've been having, and Roach invites Oz back to the security team. They're not really brakemen anymore, so they're just calling themselves security. Ben and Till trace the chemical lines back to the subtrain down to the bottom of the car, and they find the line hooked up to a chemical tank with some writing on it. Ben thinks it's the chemical that caused the damage to the guy's arm, and we know to Audrey and to Till's arm. Leighton and Javi are successful in disconnecting Big Alice. Ruth confronts Leighton about stealing the train, and Sykes beats Leighton's ass in front of everybody. Roche convinces Ruth to hold a vote. Ruth always talks big smack about them being a democracy, so Roche says, "You put your money where your fucking mouth is, and we'll figure this out democratically." While this is happening, Alex does an autopsy on her bird. She says the bird died of expangination or something like that. It's like where all the blood comes out. So Javi makes a joke about, oh, now we got to worry about vampires. Alex thinks something's wrong with the pocket of New Eden. Josie and Leighton argue. They don't really make up. Leighton actually wins the vote. He's allowed to take 3 cars and anybody that volunteers to go with him. He must return in 3 weeks. Alex ends up going with them as an engineer. Ruth goes with them to make sure the train comes back on time, and we get a handful of, I believe Josie as well, goes with them, and then we get a handful of tailies that join them. Ben and Till attempt to gas Nima, a soldier, and Melius. They're unsuccessful, and Nima and Till end up getting gassed. It's just a sedation gas. It's not the bad stuff that we're worried about. But while they're down on the ground fighting for a mask, we find out that Audrey survived. So the people on the train now know the people are alive in New Eden. Till and Ben both wake up in the hotbox, and they find out that what they were setting up was this type of trap because they intend on taking Big Alice. It must be part of Melius's overall plan. Melius asks them to rewire not Till and Ben, yes, his men to rewire the trap with the more deadly gas. Nima protests, but it happens anyways. Our New Eden crew heads out over the bridge they've just finished in search of Snowpiercer. Episode 4 starts with Josie reminiscing about being in the tail in a flashback, which seems like the early days of the tail, maybe in the first few years of them being tailies. Leighton and Josie are patching up a fellow tailie. He's going to be all right. Dubbed over is Josie making comparisons between the North Star and Leighton. Back aboard Big Alice, current day, the team is planning on how to board Snowpiercer. Leighton wants to conduct an extraction mission. Go in, get Liana, and get out. He wants to do an extraction, not a revolution. Josie closes the intro saying, en route to Snowpiercer, 879 cars strong. Back in New Eden, a storm is raging. Eggsegg has lost power and crops are failing. Sykes hears an explosion in the distance. Josie joins Alex at the helm of Big Alice, and they discuss how the manual override will work when they dock. Alex can hack it remotely after they connect a patch cable. That's actually the easy part of the plan. They can't actually connect, like dock with Snowpiercer, so Leighton and Josie are going to have to jump from train to train. I find this scene kind of out of place. What happens next? Ruth and Leighton are like on watch for Snowpiercer. It wasn't made evident in the scene before that they've caught up with them, only that they're planning what to do when they do catch them. But in this next scene, they're waiting, like in describing what they're going to do, and then Snowpiercer's just there. With stealth mode activated, the team is getting into position to jump from car to car. They don't think Snowpiercer spotted them yet. As the plan is about to commence, the Admiral makes contact over the radio, blowing Big Alice's cover. Radio conversation takes place between Layton and the Admiral. The Admiral wants to know why he's there, and Layton isn't playing coy, and he demands to be given back his daughter. Anton denies being involved in Liana's disappearance. Layton shuts down all the talking, storms off, and basically refuses to talk to the Admiral till he can come up with a better plan. Back in New Eden, it's questions galore. Javi's being assaulted by a mob verbally, and Roche has to step in to save him. Javi's being very realistic about like how much power they have and how long they can survive without Big Alice, and it's really pushing everybody to the edge. So Roche steps in. He says these things are just the hypothetical bads that can happen, and he asks everybody to rally together to keep the town safe. Sykes tries to confront Javi. It seems like there might be a romance blooming there, and Sykes wants in on the council. Most of the council members are away or dead, and she thinks that would be helpful, seeing as she already looks after the town's food supply. Back on Big Alice, the plan is starting to come together. What our team is going to do is agree to Doc to come over and do things the easy way, and when they get close, they're going to fake a technical issue. They will be close enough that Layton and Josie can make the jump onto the next train, and they can infiltrate, get Liana, and by the time they're ready to connect, be there to escape. A slight hiccup occurs when they are about to commence the plan, as Josie hears over the radio Miles's voice. She lets it slip that they're coming for them. Both sides are taken off the radio right away. Even though this slight hiccup occurs, Anton agrees to allow them to get into docking position. Anton briefs his men about Big Alice docking with Snowpiercer, where he wants men, and what to look out for. Nima attempts to discourage Anton from using the gas. Nima's now calling it the Gemini variant. So this is some of the most information we've gotten so far about this black gas that's scarring everybody up, and they have to breathe it in all the time. We get a nice peek into the Admiral's past. When he sits down at his desk, there's a picture of him and a woman. It's probably him and his wife, showing that he had a life before this deep freeze, and he might even have been a normal guy. Nima questions Anton's tactics in front of his men, and he doesn't really like this. He gets frustrated with Nima and says that he's giving Layton false hope so that he'll connect the train and fall into the trap. Anton's actually pretty pissed with Nima because he would question him in front of his men, so he does another power move, and he makes him do push-ups in front of everybody. Nima's like a chemist, and they play him off as a very, like, frail guy, so he's only able to do 3 push-ups, and Anton makes fun of him the whole time and belittles him at the end when he can only get 3 done. Ben and Till are cooking it up in the hot box, and they are struggling to make any type of conversation, talking about favorite movies and favorite vacations. Nima surprises them and us, the audience, by getting to the hot box and asking Ben how he can deactivate the trap. Ruth and Alex are at the helm of Big Alice, as Josie and Layton prepare on the roof to take Snowpiercer. Nima attempts to shut down the trap, but is stopped by one of Anton's masked men. Ruth lays the masterminded excuse on Anton. He buys it, but is upset with them, so he pumps the brakes on the train, causing them to bump into each other. Dr. Pelton arrives in the last car, just in time to distract our masked man from Josie and Layton landing on the roof of the car. It's an egg car, so it has like a glass roof. So she is there, she's not supposed to be there, so the guy escorts her out of the area, and the whole time it's like, you know, in the background you can see Josie and them sneaking across the roof. Pretty ingenious, Dr. Pelton. Layton and Josie make it in through a cold lock. Back in New Eden, Roche is helping his daughter close up the market. She's worried about him and he's worried about her. He says he's so upset with himself because he allowed Liana to be taken on his watch. Oz then approaches them with findings. Roche, Javi, and Oz are all stunned to be looking at a human hand. Anton notices a cold lock was opened. Miles tries to pass this off as a error code or something that's not really important. Anton's on to Layton, so he calls Big Alice and asks Ruth to speak to Layton. Ruth is unable to provide Layton, so Anton, being this admiral and a good strategic planner guy, he knows that Layton's on Snowpiercer. Anton removes Miles from the helm and has Ben dragged back up from the factory cars to place him. In these next few scenes, it's evident that Josie was injured when they jumped from train to train. Her and Layton are sneaking around with Dr. Pelton. The Admiral has separated children from their parents to incentivize the workers to keep working hard. So they'll have to go up train to first class to find the kid car. Nema begs the guard to reconsider reporting him to Anton and even offers him help for his pain. He pulls out a canister of gas to hook up to the soldier's breathing apparatus. He says it'll act like a painkiller. In fact, it ends up knocking him out. Back in New Eden, Sykes and Javi are doing an autopsy on the hand, or a necropsy, whatever it is, and they find an RFID chip in the hand, signaling to us and them that this is somebody from Snowpiercer. So it's probably somebody we know, or now we have a murderer amongst us. Layton and Josie are spotted in the market. The uproar of everybody being happy with their return notifies the peacekeepers that they're there, and they have to separate to avoid being captured. Ben returns to the engine, and Anton wants insider information on Big Alice, specifically how to activate the docking mechanism remotely. Ben tells him that this isn't possible, and Anton's pretty frustrated with him. Anton tips his hand to Big Alice, revealing he knows Layton is on his own train. He orders Ben to hit the gas on Snowpiercer, forcing Big Alice to accelerate to keep up. Josie makes it down to the hotbox and lets Till out. Now it's them two against the peacekeepers. Nema is almost caught by another peacekeeper, but is saved by Layton. Till and Josie make it to the kid car. They search but do not find Liana, but Josie is reunited with Miles. Their reunion is cut short, and Josie is captured by Anton's men. Nema reveals his plan to Layton. His plan is to retrofit a car to fire missiles. They can take the train all over the world and create an integrated web of hotspots using their chemicals. While he's explaining his plan to Layton, it's revealed that he's been holding down the transmit button on a walkie-talkie, revealing his position to the peacekeepers. Layton fights a couple peacekeepers and gets away. Ruth and Alex must make a choice to speed up and follow the train. They do this, but their chances of getting back to New Eden are getting shorter and shorter. Josie is taken to Anton in the engine car. Anton doesn't have Liana, but can take them to her, so I think we're supposed to believe that she's in Djibouti. It was one of Anton's men who took them because how they were dressed and everything. Anton then reveals that he wants to trade Big Alice for Liana. Back in New Eden, Roche and Oz are looking around the area where Oz found the hand, and when he comes out of his attack, Roche is gone. This is where we end the episode, episode 5 in season 4 of Snowpiercer. The title of this episode is The Engineer. Our opening starts with Ben. He also narrates the opening. Ben takes a look back on his first revolution aboard Snowpiercer, and he talks about how they didn't focus on surviving. Everybody focused on what they had lost. So it was pretty down times on the first season, or first revolution, I should say. The first season was pretty down times too, but it's a little different. Layton reunites with Miles and Till somewhere in third class. After Anton offers Josie the trade, Big Alice for Liana, she protests and tries to fight Anton. Ben speaks up and tries to convince her to get on the side of revolution. We end this opening with Snowpiercer, 1,001 cars long. After the opening, we get a little lesson on the pros and cons of a revolution. Anton and Layton finally meet face to face, and although Layton doesn't get to see Liana, he gets to hear her voice over the radio, giving him proof of life. Ruth and Alex get a call over the radio. It's Layton. He's in Snowpiercer's engine with Anton and is ready to hand over the train. Ruth and Alex have a hard choice. They know if they reconnect to Snowpiercer, they may never get back to New Eden, but they decide to anyways, as They knew they were here to save Liana, and if that's the only way to do it, they're going to do it. So everybody arrives in Djibouti. I'm going to start calling it the Peacekeeper Base because I don't know if it's actually in Djibouti. They just said in the first few episodes that there was a big trade hub around Djibouti. Ben and Leighton are taken off the train and separated. Now I'm trying to make good sense of this base. So the level they get off at, like when Snowpiercer arrives, the level they go into the base is level 42. They enter an elevator on level 42 and then exit on level 35. Leighton is taken to decontamination. This thing is a full-on underground base. It seems to be staffed by hundreds, if not thousands of people, and everybody's going about doing their own jobs. I'm assuming they're growing food down there as well. Leighton is taken all the way to floor 10, but when he's in the elevator, he notices a section of the floors are blocked out, like their buttons are covered. He asks if this is because of a breach, but the soldier offers him no answer. Leighton is taken to a room where he's met by Till, Ruth, and Alex. Shortly after arriving, Ben joins them. We learn here, even though Alex got Big Alice to run at idle in New Eden, Snowpiercer can't stay docked at idle for more than 3 hours. Anton shows up to this break room with about half a dozen men. Anton gives a speech about that things are going to get better, and the next time they leave, they'll be leaving to a new world, basically. And he says that's the good part, but the next part you're not going to like so much. And finally, it took us 5 episodes, but Wilford enters the room. He looks a little worse for wear, and he's wearing kind of like military clothes. Leighton tries to attack Wilford and then is separated from the rest of the group. We find out that Anton saved Wilford. They found them in his track scaler. Anton lays it down that Mel and Wilford have been working together, along with Nima and the other scientists, on this plan. Anton intends for our group to stay and work with Wilford. They're not so happy about that. Wilford advises Anton in the hallway about giving back Liana. He wants him to wait a little bit, and you can see that Anton's also playing his own game. Wilford is always doing little actions to manipulate people, and you can tell Anton's aware of this. We have a scene with Josie and Dr. Headwood. Find out that the injury that Josie sustained in the last episode was torn ligaments, and it's not just because of when they jumped over, they kind of fell. Josie's injury is related to the fact that her numbness is increasing. She received a lot of cold treatment after she had all the frostbite from when she was fighting with Melanie in hospital. I believe that it was in season 1. We're only about 5 minutes in screen time since this happened, but Ruth already regrets connecting Big Alice to Snowpiercer. The next scene's pretty interesting. Wilford walks from our underground base to the helm of Big Alice, and you can tell that he longs to be in control again. He's obviously been under the military's thumb, and he's going around the cart looking for some of his fancier things. Leighton's raging. He's kicking walls and windows, and he's trying to get out of this room they have him captive in. Anton returns, and he gives him Liana's toy from decontamination. Anton also offers Leighton an opportunity to see his daughter. At the end of their chat, Anton dangles the opportunity of maybe once the mission's completed, he might be able to have his revenge on Wilford. Back aboard Big Alice, Nima and Wilford are talking about the redesign and the retrofit of certain cars to be able to shoot rockets. Nima is worried about if the tracks and the cars can handle the blowback from the rockets being launched. Wilford is obviously on the side of science. He is a bad guy, but it is an opportunity to take control again, so he's on board. While he's chatting with Nima, he calls Anton a bull, and you can see that he doesn't respect him very much. Alex arrives, and Wilford and her have a chat. He's packing up some of his nice shirts and coats, and you can tell he's looking around trying to find something, and she says she threw it out, and you don't know what it is for a second. He goes, "You wouldn't dare, you're not that cruel." And then after they have a little bit of a chat, and then she gives him a hidden container of joints, a big container of joints she had, and obviously he was in the track scaler and then he's been with the military, so he probably wouldn't have had access to any weed. We get an announcement over the loudspeaker that it's 1 hour to departure. Okay, so we get some shots now of Wilford and Alex going down a hallway. They're heading to Melanie's lab. Ruth explains New Eden to Ben and Till. They have a hard life there, but it's theirs. Ben's fed up with being a prisoner, and he decides to start tinkering. He looks around the room and he finds some bobs and bibs, and He starts engineering a way to get out of the room. What he ends up doing is fashioning an electromagnet and disengaging the lock on the top of the door, and they escape. Our crew's able to get one over on the first guard they meet. Now they're armed with a baton, and they head for the stairwell. Our crew of Ruth, Till, and Ben, and Alex, they hit level 12. Ruth decides to stay for Leighton to try and rescue him. Ben and Till attempt to get back to the train. Alex and Wilford enter the head engineering office. When they enter, they tell us, Wilford tells us, basically, that they have separate working areas, him and Melanie. So I think it's funny that they've given Melanie the head engineer room, and Wilford's in some type of secondary lab. Ben and Till run into the same hallway that this room is in when they're attempting to head back to the train. So they end up entering, or trying to knock on the door. They think maybe Mel's is in there, so they try to open the door. It doesn't work with the key they have from the soldier they robbed earlier. Eventually, Wilford opens the door. They have a little spat. Ben punches Wilford really hard, and then Wilford hits the alarm, calling soldiers. Alex, from studying a plan on the wall, a floor layout plan, she tells them how to get back to Big Alice, and Ben and Till get there. We have a cool fake out in the hallway. So Ruth's standing there with her baton. She's standing there with her baton like this, getting ready to knock these guards out. And right before they come around the corner, they enter the elevator that's on the corner. So Ruth sticks her head out just in time for Leighton to see her. She eventually makes it back onto Snowpiercer without Leighton. Ben and Alex hadn't had a chance to talk this over, but earlier we found out that the manual disconnect is outside. So somebody would have to go out with a breach suit, or Josie in her special suit would have to go out to manually disconnect the trains. Everything else had been overridden or broken. So when they get back to Snowpiercer, Ben and Till can't disconnect the trains. So they realize that they're going to have to go down and sabotage the cart so that they can escape. They find out that this is going to only be possible from the Snowpiercer side, so Ben offers to stay and manually disconnect the trains. They both don't know yet, or Till doesn't know, that he's going to have to go outside. In the next scene, we have Ben psyching himself up and then opening the door on the back of the train to do the manual disconnect. He struggles against the immense cold and eventually disconnects the trains, but he doesn't make it. Unfortunately, this is going to be the first loss of the season, and I think we're going to have a few more, seeing as they're going to wrap the season up, but Ben does not make it, and Till has to watch him freeze to death. We're going to cut back to the underground base now. Dr. Hedwood is switching Josie's blood with Wilford's blood, like doing a swap transfusion or something like that. She tricked her earlier by saying Liana needed her help, and has clearly done some more experimenting on her. Nima and Alex get a chance to meet in what seems like the command center of the underground base. Asks her if people in the pocket have been experiencing nosebleeds, leading us to believe he knows a lot more about what's going on. We wrap up this episode with Leighton being tortured by Anton because he was supposed to, the trade was Big Alice for Liana. They no longer have Big Alice. So what he does is he has like not a two-way mirror, but like an interrogation room style mirror, and he flicks the light on, and Leighton is holding Wilford is teasing Leighton by holding Liana and playing with her on the other side of the glass. Leighton seems pretty defeated, and credits roll. Snowpiercer, Season 4, Episode 6. The title of this one is Belle the Cat. This episode opens on Wilford. He's doing some soldering. It's the current day. We know this because he's wearing his fancy coat that he got in the last episode. He talks about the engineer's greatest tool being the fulcrum. Jump to 11 months earlier. Wilford's in the track scaler. He's in and out of suspension, kind of like Mel in Season 3. We see his whole journey. He runs out of suspension drugs and water, and eventually makes pleas for help over the radio. Eventually, he's saved by the peacekeepers. Wilford wakes up in the medical wing, and we find out some information now. So the base that Snowpiercer's been parked at, where the peacekeepers work out of, is called Bravo 30, and it is in Djibouti. Anton says the bunker is referred to as the silo. Wilford closes out the intro with Snowpiercer, 129 cars long. Alex and Nima meet in a laboratory. We learn Melanie is off base doing atmospheric testing and should have been back by now. Alex wants to know who got away on Big Alice last episode, and Nima only wants to talk about the science. Alex offers to trade her scientific data from New Eden for information about who escaped. Leighton wakes up in a seemingly abandoned silo. He wanders around disorientated. He comes to a door, he passes through, and then you get to see that there's people following behind him. Big Alice roars through the frozen wastelands. Till passes through what looks like the old tail cars and is met by Dr. Pelton. Ruth is counting supplies in Big Alice's engine car when Till comes to check on the situation. We learn that supplies are very low, and Till asks Ruth to give a rousing speech to get everybody through it. Ruth attempts to do this, as she's done it numerous times, but chokes at the last minute, running away. Oz is wandering around the perimeter of New Eden looking for Roche, who disappeared at the end of the last episode. Oz comes across a tent, which he thinks Roche may be in, but upon further inspection, it's Wiggins from last season. Nima catches up with Anton in a hallway and asks him to perform another round of tests. We don't know what this means yet. Anton hesitates, but approves it. Wilford has a moment of lightheadedness as he works on the panel, leading to a cut on his hand. The guard supervising him, the one with the mouse on his helmet, allows Wilford to take an early lunch. He visits Dr. Headwood, and she suggests performing another treatment. We don't really know what that means, but it's pretty mysterious. We'll see later in the episode that it seems to reinvigorate him. Leighton wanders into a lab. I'm starting to think that this is one of the blocked off floors in the base. He passes cages in what seems like a dissection lab. He stumbles through some files, and we learn that they're experimenting on all different types of rodents. And I also saw at the bottom of the list zebrafish. Let me know if you saw something else. He's confronted by the inhabitants of this floor and is captured. Sykes, Javi, and Oz question Wiggins as he was on the train. He wasn't with them in New Eden, so the only way he got here was with the soldiers. Sykes ends up using Pain to interrogate him. She smushes his cut off hand, or his stub, and he screams out in pain and eventually passes out. In the next scene, Wilford's holding court over a bunch of peacekeepers in what looks like a lunchroom. Wilford tells a rousing fight story, trying to gain some traction amongst Anton's troops. The whole time he's talking and laughing and he's smoking a big cigar. He must have got it off of Big Alice in the last episode. Anton walks in and confronts Wilford. He says that one of his troops should have told him, but there is no smoking. Wilford offers to put out his cigar. Anton protests, takes the cigar, and then puts it out on the back of one of his soldiers' hands. He has Wilford continue his story, and you can see Wilford shaken. Anton ends up leaving. He goes to the stairwell, and he has some type of anger or panic attack, punching the wall. Leighton wakes up and is questioned by the inhabitants of what we learn is floor 3. It is in fact one of the locked out levels of the silo. He informs them that he's from Snowpiercer and pleads his case. Anton, as a punishment for Wilford's story, has him taken off the repairs of Snowpiercer and sent on a sample run, which we learn is what Nima wanted earlier. Alex takes over the repairs of Snowpiercer. Wilford and 5 peacekeepers enter floor 3 for a sample run. The soldiers taunt the inhabitants of level 3 and pour out a giant bag of those MREs we saw in the vending machines earlier. Wilford makes some comments about being bored, and then the lights start to strobe. Joker and the Thief by Wolfmother plays. Wilford laughs and says this is more like it. I'm calling them the freaks, the scarred up people. They run in and try and grab the MREs, and the soldiers are grabbing them and taking blood samples. When they try to leave, Wilford is left on level 3. The soldier, the one we've been seeing most of this episode, the one with the wolf on his mask or mouse on his mask, points his gun at Wilford like he's going to kill him, and then Wilford does some sweet talking and he lets him live, but abandons him on this level. He's confronted by Layton. They run at each other, and this is the scene that it seems like Wilford was like really reinvigorated by that treatment he got from Dr. Headwood, because he keeps up like Wilford's like 65 years old and he keeps up pretty well. Like at the beginning of this fight, he kicks a table at Layton and Layton runs along the wall and like Superman punches him. It's a pretty good, for Snowpiercer, it's a pretty good hand-to-hand scene. Little daredevil-y. Layton gets the upper hand on Wilford, and then Wilford pulls out a straight razor and slices Layton. Both dazed, they slink away to nurse their wounds. Back on Big Alice, Till attempts to bring Ruth some food. Ruth said she couldn't give the speech because she had felt like she'd never been in this position before, losing an engineer. They both agree to strive forward for Ben. So it turns out Wiggins was with the soldiers, and he was working with them to gain information on New Eden. We learn a little bit about Sykes in this scene. She purposefully works in Ag Seg, so none of her militaristic habits would come out. She tortured Wiggins pretty easily, and she's worried that she could like relapse into being really violent. Layton is saved by the leader of the people of level 3. Her name is Kara. She superglues this wound together, and I don't think this is how it works. Like, I know you can superglue a wound together on your hand or something to cut yourself, but this is like a 10-inch slash that goes up his chest to his, like, over his shoulder. I don't think, and she has like a little tube of super glue. I think you would need, like, if you were going to do it, you'd need like a pint of super glue. Wilford rages in what looks like a radio room. He's very delirious after Layton smashed his head off the pavement. Kara explains to Layton that there was chemical leaks, and that's why the floors were sealed off. I find this very funny that Layton's basically okay now. He got super glued up, and even though he lost a bunch of blood, completely fine. Oz gets Wiggins drunk out at his tent. Oz wants to get back to Snowpiercer. He thinks that's where he belongs. And then he offers Wiggins his night car service, and for a second you think that it's going to get pretty raunchy. Alex works on the gate release, and she looks out the little slot in the door and sees that the manual override is outside, allowing her to start to put the pieces together that somebody may have had to sacrifice themselves to release the cars. Wilford works on the speaker system in this radio room, and Layton attempts to bash the doors down, and when that doesn't work, he attempts to bash the windows in. Alex eventually fixes the door, and Nima tells Alex that Ben is dead. Anton gets a call from Wilford. He's fixed the communication system on level 3. Wilford threatens Anton. Wilford gloats and Anton rages. Anton makes Mouse take off his helmet and orders him to clean the level completely. In a turn of events, Wilford and Layton form a truce so they can both escape level 3. Wilford so he can get back to his trains, and Layton so he can get back to his daughter. So it wasn't sex Oz was offering. He ties Wiggins to the bed and then tickles his feet with oil, which is pretty weird, but then he tickles him so much that he can actually get the information out of him, interrogation style, and we find out that Wiggins was working with the Headwoods. Nima explains to Alex that Gemini, the black gas that we've been seeing this episode, is what allowed them to create New Eden. They shot a crude form of it up into the atmosphere, and it migrated around using weather, and that's how those hot spots were formed. The early form of Gemini is what caused the nosebleeds in New Eden. Wilford is trying to hotwire the doors of the elevator so they can climb into the shaft and get on top of the elevator car. Kara interrupts them and wonders why they would want to leave this floor. They don't really know of a world outside of it, the silo, anymore, so they're content with their horrible life. Anton and the Peacekeepers start equipping all their fancy gear to go into level 3 and kill everybody. Layton and Wilford are interrupted when they're trying to open the elevator door. Thinking it's too soon, they brace for battle, but psych, it's actually Alex in the elevator, using Nima's card to get there. On Big Alice, they have a service for Ben. Each member of the train taking a small swipe with a knife to leave this symbol on the entry to Big Alice's helm. Ruth makes a beautiful statement about the engineer never leaving the train. It's kind of like Brooks from the Shawshank Redemption. It's even a B. The last interesting fact Wiggins had to give Oz was that they were digging out and planting different explosives around New Eden so that they could cause an avalanche to cover the city in snow. Nema notices Alex stole his card to get to level 3. Before he can tell anybody, Anton enters the room, stating that Melanie Snowcat is just a few kilometers out, signaling she'll probably return next episode. Episode 7, called A Moth to a Flame, opens 3 years ago with Anton. In this scene, he is only Captain Melios. The previous admiral scolds Anton because he reinstated the Gemini program. The current admiral, the name on her uniform is Chang, and I'm pretty sure she's a unscarred up version of Kara that we met in the last episode. After all the lab animals died, Anton moved into human trials of the Gemini gas. The current admiral scolds him once again and removes him from his position. Anton works himself up and then deploys the gas to level 3. Nema survives the gas attack, and we learn the person who ratted out Anton for his human trials was his own wife. She's gassed in the attack and doesn't survive. He claims that his betrayal over the former admiral is the only way to ensure humanity's survival. Anton ends with Snowpiercer, 879 cars long. Melanie arrives on a snowcat, and she demands to see Anton as soon as her and the soldiers enter the elevator. In this conversation, Anton and Mel are happy that the CW7 is coming down, but Mel continues to be worried about the effects of the gas on the atmosphere. Melanie wants to see Ben, but Anton delays her by having her check the numbers over again. She warns him that he should mentally prepare to delay the launch because she's worried that the Gemini gas will have negative effects on the atmosphere. Leighton and Wilford are still looking for a way out of level 3. When Alex showed up last episode, the wristband that she had stolen from Nema was deactivated, so now they're all stuck on level 3. Anton's men prepare to rappel down. Alex and Wilford run off to do some science scheming. Leighton is left to watch guard over the elevator. Anton and Nema do a walk and talk around the upper levels of the base. Nema warns Anton that the whole project might be at jeopardy if Melanie finds out that Alex is stuck on level 3 and Ben is dead. Anton has simple instructions for Nema: lie and kiss Mel's ass. Wilford comes up with a plan to escape level 3. He wants Alex to crawl through the air ducts, and she refuses at first. In Mel's lab, when she uploads her data, she gets an increased radiation alarm on her computer. She examines her screens further, and then storms out of the room after looking at some notes on the table. Her screen is shown to be displaying the Horn of Africa, along with a high toxicity alert. This is bad because the Horn of Africa is where New Eden is. Leighton attacks the first soldier through the elevator. He manages to wrestle his gun away from him, but it is out of bullets. The soldiers throw down gas, but Kara wires the door shut. Oz goes over with Javi and Sykes where he found the explosives in the last episode. Javi and Sykes go over the facts and point out that the whole town is on edge. They receive a call on the radio from Big Alice. They're almost at the bridge, and everybody's excited to get back to New Eden. Javi stops them, along with Sykes protests that they haven't cleared the bridge yet, so there might be explosives. Mel can't get access to the elevator, so she confronts Nema about the fact that the notes she found in her office were Alex's notes from New Eden. Nema takes Anton's advice and fills Mel in on some critical details, but leaves out some important ones. Alex and Wilford finish working on a machine. It seems to be a big part of their plan. Leighton and Kara barricade the elevator door with some bookshelves. The soldiers mount another attack. Leighton convinces Alex to enter the air ducts, and he wheels their machine into position just as the soldiers arrive. As the soldiers enter level 3 through the elevator, Wilford blasts them with a loudspeaker that he's built. He's wearing hearing protection, and we're led to believe the music is so loud that it can paralyze soldiers. Wolfmother makes a return. In the midst of the conflict, Leighton finds a grenade, which he rushes to the stairwell door to blow it open. Leighton's plan works, and Leighton and Wilford escape into the stairwell. Anton and Nima have another walk and talk. Anton threatens Nima's life. Javi, Sykes, and Oz work on conserving power as well as securing the bridge. Mel's in the stairwell, and she runs into Leighton and Wilford. They have a meeting in a separate room. It looks like the room they were keeping Leighton in earlier in the season. Mel denies not knowing, like, they had Leanna and how bad the conditions are on the train. Wilford plans to confront Anton, and he tries to get Leighton and Mel to work together to secure the train. He makes an appeal to humanity and hopes he can get them on their side. Mel and Leighton team up to save as many of their people as they can. Till calls over the radio to New Eden with no answer. Ruth and Till talk about how bad Audrey is after the gas attack, and Till wonders if she can sing anymore. They both seek comfort in listening to Audrey's records on Big Alice. For a second, we think Leighton's going to rescue Josie, and it turns out she was already rescuing herself. We show up as she's beaten 4 guards senseless in the hallway. Leighton and Josie are reunited. Leighton arrives to Mission Control at the top of Bravo Base, giving orders about Mel and Leighton not entering the train. Anton confronts him with a gun to his head. Mel and Alex, now aboard Snowpiercer, head for the engine car. They have to walk through what has become of Snowpiercer, the horrible conditions, and the torture shacks. Alex confides in Mel how bad the situation is, and then she tells her that Ben is dead. Nima enters the library car with some other scientists and soldiers, and he confirmed that they're engaging the launch system for the rocket. At gunpoint, Anton takes Wilford to the elevator. He says they're going to a decommissioned floor so Wilford can work on the heating system. Leighton and Josie run into Dr. Hedwood, along with one of our big soldiers with the masks on, in the hallway. After some pleading, Dr. Hedwood returns Leanna to Leighton. We cut back to Wilford and Anton in a frozen hallway. Anton is ridiculing about him building the trains and doing magnificent things, but dying a nobody here on this frozen level. Wilford appears to be freezing to death momentarily, and then all the color flushes back or goes back to his face and hands, and the frost burn resides. The treatments that he's been getting from Dr. Hedwood, the transfusions of blood from Josie, made Wilford impervious to the cold. Wilford gets the upper hand on Anton. Now that Anton doesn't know what to do with the fact that a person can survive in the cold, Anton freaks out and turns around, and Wilford rips his air hose off of his helmet. Wilford gets the last line and then removes his helmet and leaves him for dead. There's a cool moment here where Wilford slams Anton's helmet down in the main control room and starts giving out orders, and the soldiers are listening. Nima hears over the radio that Anton will probably not be joining them. He presses on the soldiers to complete his mission and has seemingly taken control of Snowpiercer. Alex and Mel chat in a subcar. Mel gets a chance to learn about Alex's independent research in New Eden, along with the story about her bird. Josie and Leighton get a chance to notice that Leanna had an IV in her the same way Josie did, so maybe they've furthered Leanna's cold treatments, or have been using her blood to treat Mr. Wilford. Nima meets Alex and Mel in the library car. He pretends to give control of the train back to Melanie. Melanie goes over the fact that Gemini is not ready. Wilford gains access to Snowpiercer, although Josie and Leighton see the breech lock alarm. Leighton confronts Wilford, claiming he used Leanna and Josie to secure his own cold treatment. Leighton overpowers Mr. Wilford and takes his gun. Wilford pleads for his life. So we cut back and forth a lot here between Leighton and Wilford and Mel and Nima. She is confronting him about how bad Gemini is, and he's denying all the facts. Mel's idea, after looking at the data, is that if they release Gemini, it will erode the atmosphere and leave the whole planet uninhabitable for life. Instead of shooting him, Wilford asks Leighton if he can enjoy one more joint before he's killed. He starts to smoke the joint and then tell Leighton a story about Fidel Castro smoking a poisoned cigar, and we're led to believe that the joint he's smoking will kill him. Back to Nema and Mel. Nema refuses to acknowledge the numbers, although it looks like Mel might be making some headway. Leighton and Wilford talk about life and death. Nema, in a fit of rage, says that Gemini will work because he's been working on it for 15 years. Mel has a realization along with us that this isn't a good thing because the freeze only happened 9 years ago. So why would he be working on something to fix the freeze before the freeze? With his last breaths, Wilford warns us and Leighton about Nema, saying he's a broken toy in the corner that nobody kept their eyes on. As his light putters out, he tells us that Nema is the one that created CW7 and froze the world in the first place. Following this information, Wilford breathes his last breath, and we see him laying there lifeless. So we're led to believe that now Wilford is dead, or maybe his joint from Dr. Headwood simulates death, and he'll be back next episode. Javi and the crew find some explosives on the track. Javi attempts to disarm these explosives. He freezes the mechanism, and then we cut to Big Alice. Aboard Big Alice, Ruth and Till hear an explosion in the distance. Josie, Leighton, and Liana are heading up train. We end the episode with them running into a soldier and him disconnecting the cars, leaving the three of them for dead. So depending on how far they are, maybe there's a breach suit there. They might be able to get back to Djibouti or get to New Eden. And that's the end of the episode. This episode starts with Javi. We get a zoom in on his face before the intro starts, and his internal monologue is in Spanish. We get a slow zoom out as he talks about needing a community to create New Eden, and that a single person would have died after a few days. We zoom out so we can see his complete body. His ears still ringing, but he's intact. In Snowpiercer's engine car, Alex returns to the helm. She's met with a little resistance from the soldiers. They seem to play along with her being in charge and give her control. Josie and Leighton are attempting to formulate a plan to get out of the disconnected cars from last episode. You can tell Leighton's already starting to get cold. He's shivering, but of course Josie and Leanna are fine due to their cold treatments. Leighton is happy to find a radio nestled in the wall. He sends a distress alarm, but then the car powers down. Javi is helped into the infirmary at New Eden. They let us know right away that he's probably going to live. Big Alice heads into New Eden to dock, now that the track has been cleared. Javi's internal monologue, switching back to English, he ends with Snowpiercer, 876 cars long. Ruth, Till, and the Tailies are reunited with the rest of the colonists at New Eden. Dr. Pelton checks on Javi, and he just has a concussion. Ruth is already giving orders and delegating what everybody should be doing. Till and Audrey finally reunite, and we finally get to see that half of Audrey's face is completely scarred. Alex is at the helm of Snowpiercer. Nema arrives and lies to her about what Melanie has been doing. Nema offers Alex the head position on the retrofit of Big Alice. This shows that he is going after the other train. It wasn't clear at the end of the last episode. We can kind of see here that Nema is getting more deranged. Back in the disconnected cars, Leighton, Josie, and Leanna huddle together for warmth. We don't know how much more time Leighton has. He tells them that they should leave him and escape while they can. Just then, they hear a bang in the next car. Josie enters the car and confronts a man wearing a military cold suit. She's going to attack him, but then he removes his helmet, and it's actually Roche. So we were wondering where Roche has been, if he was dead or not, and now he's got a military cold suit somehow. He heard Leighton's distress call, and he's here to help. He even brought a snowcat. Okay, the next part is pure plot armor. So they take Leighton from the car to the snowcat without a cold suit, and it's like 10 or 15 feet away, and then they throw him in the back, like the bed of a truck, and then close it up, and then get in, and he's okay. When they finally get Leighton into the snowcat and they're moving, he doesn't have a pulse, but eventually Josie's able to revive him. Sykes questions Ruth and Till about the soldiers' intentions. Oz even suggests reconnecting all the cars together and running on the rail track. Ruth said she's tired of running, so Javi reconnects Big Alice to New Eden, and light finally shines upon it again. Back in the Snowcat, Roche offers to tell us how he finally escaped and got the military suit, but Layton comes to and cuts him off. Till brings Audrey some food. She offers to make arrangements for them to be staying together, and Audrey kind of shuts her down. She feels really bad because she's all scarred up and she can't sing anymore from the gas. So she wants Till to move on. Till's kind of shocked by this, so she doesn't even put up a fight and just leaves. Sykes and Javi are preparing for the attack. They're comparing strategies, and Sykes makes fun of Javi, saying that his strategy is like the Alamo. Their talk's interrupted by Roche's return. Now, this is the next day, and so I think a whole calendar day has gone by, let's say 24 hours, and they've been on the road 24 hours. So from my guesses, it's about 1,000 kilometers by road. So let's say the Snowcat is only 900 kilometers. So if it took them 24 hours to do 900 kilometers, nobody can physically do that math, so I'll put it on the screen. Roche reunites with his daughter, and Josie reunites with Miles. Nima enters the engineer's quarters of the engine car on Snowpiercer. He's happy to find Alex, who has come up with a plan to save 50% of the working time when they do the retrofit to Big Alice. She asks Nima a question again about Melanie, and he lies. This time, his lie is different, so Alex calls out his inconsistency. In New Eden, Roche gets a beer. We get a rare moment of happiness where Roche and Oz are reuniting and having a happy time. We don't get to see a lot of moments like this where people are celebrating or even living normal lives. It's normally a lot of like, we're freezing to death and there's no food. For the second time in the episode, Roche is about to tell the people he's with and us how he managed to get the military cold suit, but he's interrupted by Ruth, who calls the council leaders for a meeting. Ruth calls for an all-hands-on deck, and Oz warns of the explosives. Together they plan an ambush and plan to move Big Alice behind the track switch so that if the soldiers set off the explosives, they'll risk cutting off Big Alice from the main track. It's implied Ruth fills everybody in on the fact that Nima froze the world with CW7. After they move Big Alice, Josie is left guarding the computer, which allows them to operate the track switch. The big Russian guy, Boshkovich, from the earlier seasons, enters the tent or building where the computer is. He offers up his services of protection to Josie. They also discuss both being victims of the Headwoods experimentations. And until this moment, I kind of forgot that he was outside and got all hurt, and they brought him back as kind of a bad guy for a little bit, but then he turns good again. We get to see Ruth and the group making some more battle plans. Nima hears of New Eden's changing tactics, and the soldiers want to use Alex against them. Nima seems to be somewhat protective over Alex, and at first does not want her to be involved. When Alex sees that they plan on using force to take Big Alice, she volunteers so they can sneak in and steal it. She thinks this will be a way to minimize casualties. Till is forging new weapons with her skills learned on the Snowpiercer work camp train. Layton attempts to comfort her, but you can tell she's very anxious. Javi looks at his hula girl, and Sykes comforts him as he mourns Ben. He wants to manually defuse the bombs, but Sykes talks him out of it. Then he comes up with the idea of possibly building a jammer. Till and Audrey go for a walk around New Eden, and they talk about the new future that they could build together. They have a loving embrace. Till tries to give Audrey hope. Layton attempts to talk to Josie before the town hall meeting. She can tell that he's mentally messed up, and she tries to warn him that the fighting that's coming up will be brutal. At the meeting, Roche reflects on the mood and suggests Ruth make a rousing speech. Instead, she makes an announcement that Roche would like to tell the story about how he escaped. He tells a tale. He talks about how while he was searching the mountainside with Oz, he took a tumble and fell in a way that he couldn't signal Oz and couldn't scream for help. He says the soldiers found him and took him back to the silo. There, in the commotion of the last episode, he found a way to escape. He tells a pretty cool story about how he was met in a stairwell by 5 guards and he took them all on. Everybody's laughing and having a good time. You can tell that his story's improving everybody's mood. Finally, the story gets wackier and wackier till it ends with him saying he saw Bigfoot staring back at him through the cold. Roche succeeds in raising morale. On Snowpiercer, the soldiers gear up to take New Eden. Alex is with them, and again, she's just trying to minimize casualties if she can. Nima is seen to only care about the mission. You can tell that he's focused. This one-track mind of his might be what led him to freeze the world in the first place. Roche has a heart-to-heart with his daughter in the cafe in Town Hall. Leighton arrives. He praises him for his parenting style, and he asks Roche to take care of Liana if he and Josie die in the upcoming battle. We see Alex and the soldiers sneak into New Eden. At Town Hall, Ruth offers one final toast, and everybody says who they're sad for losing and what they're doing it for. Alex convinced the guards to let her go by herself to initiate the track switch and take Big Alice. When she goes to enter the building, she runs into Josie, and she says she's worked the plan out, and this is the only way to save people. Josie questions and confirms that they have Melanie, and that's why Alex might be doing something. Just then, the attack starts on the town. A sniper starts taking pot shots at everybody, and Bozkovich is shot in the leg. Alex is taken to the track switch at gunpoint, and that's where the episode wraps up. Episode 9, Dominant Traits. The episode opens on Mel. She's in the padded cell that we saw Roche locked up in last season. She notices a note on the door, and when she reads it, the intro goes into a voiceover by Nima. In Nima's voice, we hear the words of the letter, in which he apologizes for the situation with Mel. What we're actually seeing on the screen, though, is Leighton taking fire in the fight that's taking place in New Eden. Nima's letter continues with him praising Mel's intelligence. While the Nima voiceover is happening, back in New Eden, Alex sabotages the track switch. She sticks in an expanding foam nozzle and fills the whole computer up with expanding foam. Ruth's at the helm of Big Alice, and she prepares a group of tailies for an attack. In Nima's letter, he calls his plan the Great Thaw. As his words are read, we see him assembling a giant warhead, we can assume of Gemini gas. In his letter, he calls for a time when we'll no longer need Snowpiercer. And he ends our intro with Snowpiercer, 876 cars long. After Nima's intro, we're taken back to New Eden, where the residents are still under fire from the soldier with the spade on their helmet. Javi joins Josie and Boki, as at the end of last episode, Boki was shot. So Javi and Josie carry him to the clinic. When they get to the stairwell of Town Hall, Javi splits off to find Leighton. We get some shots of Till moving from cover to cover until she eventually meets up with Oz. Two old partners back together again. Javi eventually finds Leighton and fills him in on what's going on with Alex and the track switch. He also tells Leighton of his plan to jam the signal of the explosives that are lining New Eden. Dr. Pelton works on Boki, and Josie offers him a blood transfusion. Nima arrives at the padded cell to talk to Mel. She demands to speak to Alex, but Nima informs her that Alex is in New Eden and in need of some parenting. Leighton and Sykes move towards Alex. In the chaos, Alex seizes the opportunity to stab Mouse in the leg with a screwdriver. When she does this, she's able to slip out the back door. Leighton is able to subdue the guard that was with Alex. He gets the soldier's gun and is able to take some shots back at Mouse. He gets the gun, runs out of ammo after firing only one shot. He does manage a successful hit, though, with his one shot. Leighton and Alex are able to make it to Town Hall. Back on Snowpiercer, Nima insists Mel complete the retrofit of Big Alice once the trains are connected. She refuses and even insists that it may not be possible on Nima's time frame. Nima says if Mel won't work with him, then he'll have no need for Big Alice. So he threatens to use the explosives his team has laid around New Eden to bury them in an avalanche. Till and Osweiler play rock, paper, scissors to see who's going to distract the guard and who's going to run around with the radio. Oz makes a plan, but as soon as he turns around, Till is gone. She left the radio on the ground. Alex and Layton reach the radio in the town hall of New Eden. They have a short exchange, and Layton tells Alex that Wilford is dead. They have a short back and forth about this. If she asks if Layton killed him, and she would understand if he did. But he says no, he ended up taking his own life. Nema praises Alex's mind when speaking with Mel. They debate using Gemini again. It seems to be an ongoing theme for them. And Mel compares him to an oil company that damaged the oceans before the freeze. Back in the clinic of New Eden, Josie gives Bulky a transfusion. Well, I guess Dr. Pelton gives them the transfusion, but the blood is going from Josie to Bulky. And while this is happening, she's kind of having PTSD of her time with the Headwoods. Oz fires up the radio and is distracting the sniper. He's running from position to position, taunting him, causing the sniper to expend a lot of his ammunition. Oz realizes the voice he's hearing over the radio sounds familiar, and it might be what he was hearing in the mountains. Back at Town Hall, Alex is in shock about Wilford. Outside Town Hall, a soldier passes by Javi. He remains hidden, and he radios to Alex and Layton. He says a soldier's coming right for them. They brace for attack. Mouse attacks them, but runs out of ammo shortly after entering Town Hall. The soldier pursues on foot, shooting at Alex and Layton with a handgun when they are met at a locked door. Layton fights hand-to-hand with Mouse as Till sneaks up on Spade. It seems that Mouse might have the upper hand on Layton when Mouse is shot. And we have a pull back, and we see that it was Till who shot Mouse with Spade's sniper rifle, having won the conflict. As that battle subsides, now all the soldiers are incapacitated. We learn Bulky will survive, and Javi continues to work on his jammer. Alex fills in the crew on the fact that Gemini gas, if it's deployed globally, will erode the atmosphere and kill everybody. Alex also thinks that Nema will derail Snowpiercer if necessary to capture Big Alice. We get a short scene of Nema installing the warhead in his missile. Mouse, having escaped after being shot, I think twice, makes it back to Snowpiercer to fill Nema in on what happened. In the next scene, Javi has a breakthrough. He completes his jammer and is ecstatic. Mel and Nema go over the plans to reconnect the trains. In this scene, we see that the soldiers are accessing the arsenal of the late departed Admiral. We see them unloading boxes of guns, but we don't see them unloading boxes of bullets. Back in New Eden, everybody braces for the attack. A large group of peacekeeping forces enter New Eden. Mel is at the front of the pack with the soldiers. She's able to give Layton a nod of warning. Layton screams, "Run!" and the whole town is gassed. Many people are knocked out from the gas, but many people make it inside different cars. Now soldiers patrol the village, keeping people inside. At the helm of Big Alice, tailies stand guard. A soldier enters and is shot with a crossbow. Then a gas canister comes through the door, and all the tailies are knocked unconscious. Mel and Alex have a walk and talk, where it's revealed it was Mel's idea to use the gas. After previously being gassed, she saw it was relatively harmless in the long term, and thought it a better alternative to Nema's men storming the town with guns and shooting everybody. She also tells Alex that they won't be helping Nema, they're just going to appear to be helping. Back-to-back walk and talks here. Nema and Headwood walk through New Eden. A soldier that was killed in the conflict is shown to Dr. Headwood, and Nema seemingly offers the dead body to Dr. Headwood for experimentation. Josie and Ruth have a short conversation about injustices. Josie has more and more resentment building for the people that are fighting against them, and she thinks that they should use more extreme measures. Ruth reminds Josie about the difference between justice and revenge. As the next conversation unfolds between Mel and Alex, the two of them are working on a radio trying to get in contact with Layton, and it is revealed to Alex that Nema was the sperm donor when Melanie conceived Alex. So, in a roundabout way, we learn that Nema is Alex's father, and this kind of pays off why he's been so interested in her. Mel keeps referring to Nema as the donor and insists that he is not Alex's father. As soon as this happens, Alex confronts Nema about being her father, and we're cut away to Layton in New Eden. Mel and Leighton make a plan over the radio to retake Snowpiercer. Back in the conversation about Nema being Alex's father, he speaks about the difference between dominant and recessive genes, saying that a lot of the good things that she has are from him, as well as some of the bad things. We get callbacks to her being raised by Wilford. Nema's making a comparison like nature versus nurture. He claims to be her partner and understanding in how intelligent she is. Ruth and Leighton form a battle plan, and Javi turns on his jammer. After he does this, Leighton tells him that he wants him to move a bomb. Javi bombs some of the soldiers, thinning out the crowd. As Snowpiercer reverses into New Eden, Josie mounts an attack on the soldiers that are still alive. Josie has a showdown with one of the soldiers, and when she thinks she's about to bite the bullet, she realizes that he has no bullets. It's revealed that many of the soldiers are carrying empty guns, and this is kind of a callback to the movie. Somehow they force Snowpiercer over the track switch, so it's kind of irrelevant that they didn't do it. They derail the end of the train, and they come in, like worm in over the ground to where Snowpiercer, or Big Alice is, and they eventually do reconnect the trains. And I guess their plan is to just pull it out and hope that it pulls back onto the track. Out of the back of Snowpiercer spill 24 soldiers with hand weapons. And just like that, we've gone from hand weapons and crossbows to guns, all the way back to hand weapons again. It's kind of reminiscent of the battles of the season 1. And this is probably because they're outside and they have room, is like one of the most epic battles in the show. Like even Ruth gets some. Ruth kills like 10 people, I think. Like she's just swinging around a sword like all willy-nilly, stabbing this guy and stabbing that guy. Our heroes from New Eden press forward through the enemies, and a large group of them are able to make it back onto the train. As this happens, Nema gives the orders, and Snowpiercer pulls away. He also gives the order to blow the explosives so that he can cause an avalanche to cover New Eden, and when he tries to, he realizes that they've been jammed. He has a little hissy fit, and by the time he turns around to react, Alex and Mel have snuck away. The last scene is Alex and Mel sneaking off into the smoke of the subtrain. Episode 10, The Last Stop. We jump right into the action at the beginning of this one, with our crew fighting up train. The traditional narration is now done by all different characters. We have Till, Ruth, Josie, Leighton, Alex, and Mel. Everybody reflects on what they've lost and what they've had to overcome to get where they are. Melanie and Alex reach Big Alice's helm and notice that the throttle controls have been ripped out. And the last intro in the whole series is Mel saying, "On Snowpiercer." And they don't say how many cars long this time. The fight makes it to Agseg, and the Peacekeepers gas our crew. They have to retreat temporarily. Back in Big Alice, Alex and Mel continue to work on gaining control. Mel mentions she thinks they need a different plan, as fixing Big Alice may take longer than they have. Alex is still tender about Wilford, and she lets it slip to Mel that he died. Melanie wants to talk about it, but Alex deflects as usual, and they continue to work on gaining control of Big Alice. Leighton and crew try to gain access to the subtrain. When they do, they realize the hatch has been sealed with breachman's foam. Bulky comments that they'll need a ton of leverage to open it. The group rigs up a series of pulleys, and then all pulling together, it gives them just enough force to pop the door open. Our group splits up, some going to find Mel and Alex, and some going up train to continue the battle. Nema enters the launch control car, and he talks about having control connected to Snowpiercer's engine car. Nema continues to prepare to launch, and is informed that they've captured Ruth. Leighton and Javi join Mel and Alex and Big Alice. They all try to come up with a plan to delay the launch of the rocket. They all take a moment to reflect on Ben, and Mel hears about his funeral service. Nema enters the main engine car and gives a command to take us to sea. And then we get to learn what the retrofit was all about. We thought that a majority of the retrofit was about bracing the train so that it could endure shooting the rocket, but we were wrong. The retrofit was indeed extensive, affecting almost every car on the train. When Nema gives the order, the train enters what we'll refer to as caterpillar mode, where almost all the drive wheels extend and become tank treads. The train is now completely off the tracks as it heads out into the middle of the ocean, presumably towards the launch site. Javi asks Alex how this is even possible, and she waves the whole thing off by saying that's what turning Snowpiercer into a work camp for 9 months will get you. Our group figures it'll take 3 hours for them to reach the launch point, 40 cars to fight through, and then disarm a rocket. No big deal. Mel lays out both ways Nema can launch the rocket, either from Snowpiercer's main engine or from the launch control next to where the rocket is. They plan to delay him by disconnecting the helm option. Nema and Ruth talk. Nema tries to deal with Ruth by saying they can have Big Alice in most of the cars once they've launched the rocket. He claims he can't be a leader and he needs Ruth to step up and stop the killing from happening. She senses weakness in him. If he needs the train to continue research afterwards, how confident can he be in the rocket working? Layton comes through the crowd and finds Josie beating a man senseless. We're pretty sure she's beaten him to death, and we can tell that she's become more and more unhinged. Hedwood and Nema have a walk and talk, which ends in Hedwood's office, where she shows Nema that she has reanimated one of the soldiers. This is kind of just brushed off, like Hedwood can just bring people back from the dead now. A peacekeeper is moving Ruth through one of the hallways when they run into Sykes. Sykes takes down the peacekeeper and rescues Ruth. Mel and Alex have a heart-to-heart while they're talking about repairing Big Alice. They bring up Wilford, and Alex says Melanie can never understand what Big Alice means to her. She was basically raised there. Mel refuses to ever leave Alex again. We see Javi putting giant gas cylinders on the subcar train. Layton and Josie talk about Josie's mental state. You can tell that she just wants to kill Dr. Hedwood but won't admit it. Our gas crew moves to the battle line. Equipped with knockout gas and gas masks, they run the subtrain car through a bunch of men, knocking them all out, and moving further up train. Till and Oswilder steal peacekeeper uniforms. Ruth begins to rally troops in the market car. She tells them that she knows that they're not confident the plan will succeed, and they need to stop the rocket from being launched. She says she needs everybody to take up arms and join her cause immediately. Till and Oz are dressed like peacekeepers, and they basically use the Wookiee trick from Star Wars to get Josie and Javi to the electrical panel. Mel and Alex show up to where Layton is, just in time to tell him that the door they're about to go through shows signs of the car being breached on the other side. Javi continues to work on the electrical panel, and when a group of soldiers comes by, they enlist the help of Oz and Till, so they must join and leave Javi where he is. Nema asks for an ETA, and we learn we're 13 minutes out from the launch site. Nema prepares his computer to launch the rocket. When he's attempting to hook it up, he's getting a message that he has no connection. This shows us that Javi's plan was successful. Javi heads up train, and Josie has disappeared. Nema heads to the rocket car, and he even gets a handgun from one of his soldiers. Bulky fixes the breached car and is jumped by Mouse. Layton and Mouse get into a fight. Melanie and Alex are able to make it to the rocket. They lock the blast doors and go to work defusing it. Mouse and Layton continue to fight, and eventually Layton gets the upper hand with some help from Bulky. Ruth and her force meet up with Javi. Josie meets up with Dr. Hedwood in a library car. Dr. Hedwood is mumbling to her shoes, and Josie confronts her about the experimentation done to her. She says that she isn't just numb physically, but she's also become numbed emotionally. Nema reaches launch control. He has all of his men barricade both sides of launch control, and we see that Oz and Till are in the group of soldiers. Nema patches into launch control, and we see that he set the launch for T-minus 10 minutes. At the rocket, Mel and Alex remove the cover to the warhead. They mention they'll have to remove the vials one by one, as the main hub is locked into the rocket. Nema notices in launch control that a sensor is off on the rocket, saying that the hatch is open. He eventually investigates, catches Melanie and Alex, and has them start to reassemble the rocket. Ruth moves with all of her fighters, and they arrive at launch control. The forces are head-to-head, and just before the battle commences, Layton reaches the front lines. Wolf takes Till hostage, and there's a standoff. Mel and Alex repair the rocket. As they're doing this, Melanie gets very verbally abusive with Nema, distracting him as Alex removes a pin from the control panel and closes the door. While Melanie is berating him, Nema has a change of heart but reveals that it is too late to stop the launch from happening. As the rocket moves into launch position, the cars jostle. This gives Till the upper hand on Wolf. As the doors open, Nema stays inside the car when Mel and Alex escape. He surrenders to the cold and freezes to death, standing at attention as the rocket launches. The battle for launch control is over before it even starts. When Layton and crew enter launch control, the scientists that were working for Nema call the rocket Icebreaker, which is a callback to the original comics. We originally thought Big Alice would be called Icebreaker. As the rocket is soaring through the sky, the pin that Alex removed causes the control panel's hatch to fly open, allowing the inside of the rocket to freeze. The rocket crashes. Everybody celebrates after a successful mission, and any of the soldiers left alive fall into line. Layton finds Josie in the library car, having locked Dr. Hedwood up. She didn't kill her after she felt bad for her just mumbling to her shoes. Layton and Josie make up. Javi and Mel take control of the engine car. The military engineer joins their team. Melanie gives an announcement from hospitality. The weather in New Eden is -6 degrees Celsius, and that as the train exits caterpillar mode, everybody should be prepared to brace. This mirrors her announcement in the first episode. Everyone reunites in New Eden. Alex and Melanie talk about the future, and they wonder how long the pocket will last for. Melanie suggests that they just seize the day. At a party, Ruth and Layton talk about the prior battle and how New Eden will be run. Javi tells Sykes that Snowpiercer can't stay at idle yet, so they'll have to go out for a few days, and he invites her to join him. She agrees to join him. Audrey asks Oz to play piano so she can sing, and we learn that her voice is unaffected by the gas, and she can still sing very well. Mel and Layton talk about the logistics of adding so many more people to New Eden, and they reflect on how fast parenting can go by. As Audrey sings, we get a change of camera angle and a nice pull-out shot to a flower growing on a frozen peak, showing us that the world may be returning to its prior state faster than we thought. That was the series finale of Snowpiercer. Thank you for watching.